CCTV being present. Burglar that went out, saw a camera, thought, no, I'm not going to burgle a house today. That can never be measured. It can never be put into a chart. And so the public will accept that because this can't be measured, and because they haven't been burgled, or there's been fewer burglaries in the area, or maybe no burglaries in that particular area, then they'll accept that CCTV is this great device. Now, I must admit, my personal view, and I said this on my website many years ago, and I have to talk personally now. If my mother was walking home on a lonely, on a darkened street by herself, I would feel more secure, rightly or wrongly, with a camera, with a CCTV operator sitting in an office somewhere, following her on camera. Now, whether that's right or wrong, whether that's me misinterpreting, how good CCTV cameras are, but I would say I'd feel better with that camera there than it not being there at all. Whether it could do any good, that's up for debate, but it would give me more reassurance having it than not having it. That's my personal view.
It's not for free, you're paying for it.
No, of course we are. And if you look on shops, people say about the cameras in shops and stores and things, and it's very different in a store. It's a condition of entry, and I've tried to explain this to many people who are against cameras in stores. Once you walk through that door, the reason why they have all the signs on the door saying CCTV in operation in this store is because it's a condition of entry. Once you enter that store, you are knowingly entering a store with CCTV. If you don't like the fact that CCTV in the store, you don't go into it. It's very similar to a passport control. When you go to an airport, you'll hand your passport and you get all the business done, and you accept that you have to walk through a scanner and be x-rayed and have your bags looked at. If you don't like that, you don't go in, because if you go into the airport and say, no, I'm not going to be scanned today, I'm not going to let you.
Do they still do it?
Sorry?
Do they still do it down there? X-ray.
Oh, I was just.
They stopped it in Manchester. They stopped it in Manchester.
I was just giving an example. I don't know. I was just giving an example. But your bags.
It's against the European. I think the European.
And
Commissioner in Parliament.
Here's another one for you. Here's another one for you as well, which is probably the best example of all condition of entry. When you're walking down the street, if you're stopped by another member of the public and they ask you to turn out your pockets and search you because they think you've got a weapon on you, you can rightfully say, no, I'm not going to do anything. The citizens' powers that you have, or common law powers that you have, don't allow you to do that. However, if you enter a football ground, you're entering with a condition of entry, and that condition of entry says that a steward who is not a warranted officer or has any sort of warrant at all is allowed to search you and turn out your pockets and make sure you don't have a weapon, because you've entered a premises with the strict knowledge that there's you can be searched by their stewards. If you don't want to be searched, you get chucked out, or you're not allowed entry in the first place. And that's why it's very different when you enter stores or enter football grounds or whatever. And people don't seem to realise this. You can have a condition of entry in your house that says that.
Does it have to be a closed premise? Or, for instance, here in Manchester, I think there are certain rules when you enter this place called. So it can be like the so-called private property, as they like to call it. So places like Springfields here in Manchester, which is like a kind of a precinct of banks and shops and stuff. So that kind of expands to everywhere, and they can confuse you and they can trick you into thinking that you stand in a so-called so-called private property or private area, and then have you concede and trick you into it. So,
I mean, it's very. I would hope. Well, I wouldn't hope. I would say that there'll be very few places where people will physically put hands on other people without the backing of law, because of the fact that in this day and age, there's so many court cases, so many people willing to take cases to court. It could be construed as assault. There's various facets of crime it could constitute if somebody's unlawfully, searched or roughed up by somebody who doesn't have the power in law. Conditions of entry are very restrictive as well. I've got haste to add you can't. I wouldn't expect if you entered John Lewis on a condition of entry that there will be any sort of caveat in there that says people can search intimately or anything like that. So there is a limit on that condition of entry, in that it would have to have some sort of reasonableness. For example, CCTV cameras operate in this store. We do prosecute shoplifters, or whatever they say. Obviously, they're not allowed to put them into toilets and things like that. And they do follow very strict rules, as I was saying earlier, with the camera and privacy and keeping it keeping it within certain boundaries.
They don't have to put it in the toilets because people carry their camera inside the toilets, and very often these are just people's phones, and they don't realize this thing can be remotely enabled.
I'll go on.
And I'm not joking. I'm serious. I mean, people carry phones and cameras to a lot of places that they shouldn't be in, and they don't think about it.
I'll go on record now and say that I don't believe there is a single store in the UK that would ever have a camera in the toilet. A store or a pub or anything like that.
No, I mean the intelligence services would have people carry, and they can remotely enable people's cameras, and we know how they do it now. And I think it's been since our last major show that it turned out that indeed phones come with two operating systems. One operating system can take over the other one. Several companies refuse to talk about it. They don't deny it, but they refuse to talk about it. And once the other operating systems takes over the main one, it can do just about anything. And this can be done by the towers. As long as you're connected, you're not only being tracked, but the tracking outposts or the antennas have the capability of sending signals to transmit from your phone as though it was just a bugging device.
But again, well, I completely agree with the tracking the phones, and it's a utility now, or a technology which is available, which people can be tracked in real time. They can find out how long they spend in McDonald's or how long they spent in the library or whatever. However, these facilities to track have again been available for years. So, for example, your debit card is probably more revealing about your personality than your phone is. In terms of
what you're talking about metadata. I'm not talking about metadata or so-called metadata, which probably actually tells. This reveals a lot more about you. The metadata is kind of like a processed summary, a profile of who you talk to and how you talk. But wait, let's clarify. When I say they take over your phone, I mean they listen to you constantly. It's not very bad for the battery of the phone, obviously, but they listen to your conversation in the house. It's like having a microphone inside your house. Basically, we also know now that GCHQ was planning to take over the camera of the Kinect or the Xbox One. We also know that they listen to conversations in Xbox Live. That's conversations that are happening in textual forms. We know more about Skype. We know about Yahoo Chat. And when it comes to surveillance inside people's homes, we know about various other ways in which they completely take over devices and then turn them into surveillance devices right inside your house. So any person who thought that was, a movie plot or a very pessimistic view on the future, no, it's not the future. It's here, and they don't just use it against people or a threat, but they use it against. Did you hear about Julian Assange in the embassy? They found a bugging device inside the embassy.
Yes,
it's quite interesting how it got there.
However, what would just add sort of as a final point, and it sort of relates back to the point I made about conditions of entry. You've agreed to this surveillance, Roy, and so have I, and so has everybody else who's listening to this. If you read, for example, let's look at the very basic level, or the ground level, your ISP itself. Have a look in your terms and conditions. I think you'll find on one of the points there's already a clause which you've signed digitally in that you've accepted the contract on the basis of this clause, that they will share data with associated bodies, government bodies, law enforcement, in the prevention and detection of crime. It's in every single ISP contract I've ever read, and we've already signed up to it. So really, look at it and be very sort of partial and neutral here, and just look at it as an outsider. People have already signed and agreed to it, because the condition of entry to use your ISP, wherever it is, Sky, I'm currently on Sky, is already that they will share data or share your data with agencies in the prevention and detection of crime. There we are. So, regardless of sort of the ethical issues of opening up camera phones and opening up webcams or whatever, people have already agreed to it. They've walked through the doors of the football ground metaphorically and allowed.
Were they given a choice?
No.
The choice is either don't use it or use it.
Yeah,
it's a real issue.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, that's life itself. For example, if you come around my house and I say to you, right, I'm selling some apples off my tree. They're £1 an apple. You say to me, no, I don't want to buy them. They're too expensive. Or you can pay £1 an apple. It's a condition of entry. It's a purchase. It's a whatever. But it's a contract that you've signed or agreed to because of your by nature of use. And it's something that I keep reiterating to people. You can argue about the ethical behavior or unethical
But
behavior.
having said that, sometimes the ISP don't keep up with. I mean, currently the Open Rights Group in the UK, ORG, they're trying to ensure that there is compliance and conformance among the ISPs
And
with
can't.
laws that have been